this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. It's a Friday show. My name is Kit Cavell, the host of Hard Lens Media. I'm joined today with my ever-outstanding co-host, Lauren Schneider.
Hello, hello.
So, yes, and by the way, huge shout-out to Lauren, especially for covering for me for yesterday's show. You guys, you and Lainey did a fantastic job. Obviously, if you're not watching Civically Minded, what's wrong with you? Come on, that's the only way you're going to learn about what the hell is going on in this country, and as well as all the civic issues that we need to address.
It's a good show, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't got it, get it. If you don't get it, go figure it out. Also, later tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'll be joining my colleague, Jerry Vassilatos. Huge shout-out to our tech presence here, FaZe, for manning the board. And by the way, as well, I will be doing a special Rockfin-only show. I'll be uploading the video myself in regards towards the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. I'll be going into more detail about that, but the way YouTube is, I won't go into full detail, especially on this channel, but it will be available on Rockfin, so if you're not subscribed to us on Rockfin, please do so. Now more than ever, the future of free speech hangs in the balance, and it's not looking too good.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Not at all.
Be sure you're still subscribed to us. There you go, because I don't know how long we're going to be on YouTube. So on that cheerful note, if you want to help out Hard Lens Media even further, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. Subscribe to us on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. And if you do have, we know that people are struggling. If you want to help us out even further, please consider being a patron supporter. By being a patron supporter, you're keeping us alive. I want to read out this wonderful list of great patrons that are keeping us, well, keeping this studio live. Shout out to Roy Hartley, Mike Termite, Cheryl Tyler, Richard Jeffries, Tommy Kelly, Mallory Boyank, Painter Q. I hope I said that name right. Bonnie Cartwright, Dustin Price, and Angie C. Thank you so much for being our patron supporters. Now more than ever, we need independent media. We need to protect free speech. And I wish I could tell all of you that it's going to get better, but it's not. So there you go. With that being said, Lauren, ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right. So we got a lot to talk about. And again, also a huge shout out to our moderators as well, keeping the peace. So thank you all so much. So let's get started with our first segment of the day. Fat Tony, Cenk Uygur, is back in the news today. You know, he is the host of that progressive channel called TYT. And recently he was on Mediaite, where he made a very asinine statement, which is very Cenk Uygur at this point, dictating who is a leftist and who's not a leftist, pointing fingers and saying they're grifters or they're doing this, especially being on social media, as just a way to make money and not really speak truth to power. Now, he called out Glenn Greenwald, he called out Jimmy Dore, as always, and even called out Briahna Joy Gray. Now, I want to make it very clear here. It wasn't too long ago where Cenk was singing the praises of Glenn Greenwald, Briahna Joy Gray, and yes, Jimmy Dore, who was once part of TYT. You see, the thing is, we all have different perspectives and points of view. Lauren, we have different perspectives and points of view. But I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone who is a leftist and who is not a leftist. We all have different perspectives and points of view, and the only way we can actually go forward is, okay, tell me your perspective. What is going on? What do you see that I don't see? I won't automatically say cancel this, cancel that. Same thing for our audience. When we give you these stories, when we tell you what we're covering, we're expecting all of you to make your own decisions. And if there's something we're missing, because I'm pretty sure we have said things on this show that a lot of you don't agree with, and we hear it out. Take, for example, Roger Meadows. He's convinced me worker co-ops is a better idea. And not to mention, abolish all parties, not just third parties, but people should be running as non-affiliates.
I agree. People should be running based on issues and people should be voting based on those issues as well instead of the parties.
Exactly. And for a long time on the show, I was a huge proponent of third parties. I still am. I'll vote third party over Democrat or Republican, but from this perspective, independent non-affiliates, that's the better pathway to go, because even then, let's say third parties actually start getting prominence. What's stopping them from being corrupted, just like the Democratic and Republican Party? And when it comes on the worker co-ops, I had no idea really their effectiveness and what they can do. I'm all for unions, but from everything I've been hearing about worker co-ops and what they can do for workers, it seems like the better path. Now, with that being said, we're going to play this video of Cenk Uygur The mighty Cenk dictating who is left, who is part of the leftist movement, and who is not. Hang on, brace yourself, folks. You're gonna get a brain aneurysm. Let's play it.
The mainstream media is disgusting in how they shut out progressives. In terms of the right wing, no. Briahna Joy Gray, unfortunately, is one of the people that are in the fake left, and so this has become a whole niche part of the industry. So Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, Briahna Joy Gray, and a couple of others in there that are. To be fair to Dave Rubin, he started this whole thing. The fake left saying, "Oh, well, it's just I'm a classical liberal, I'm a progressive, but it turns out the right wing's right about everything." Okay, so that's the shtick that they do, and they go on Tucker's show, and they dance for him, and so it's disgusting. They're not the real left, and here's how you can tell: they never disagree with Tucker.
Okay,
the mainstream media is
let's pause here,
disgusting.
because the video is going to be repeating itself. Now, I've seen the videos of Jimmy Dore on Tucker Carlson's show. He's calling out the hypocrisy of the two-party system, and with the Democrats. Yeah, he's going to call him out because the Republican Party is might as well low-hanging fruit. We know what to expect from the Republican Party.
It's so easy to point fingers and point out what the Republican Party is messing up. But
I mean, we know. We know how bad the GOP is. But the Democratic Party allows their incompetence to continue on. When in all reality, they are correct on a lot of issues, or say they're correct on a lot of issues, but they never take that initiative. So it's only fair that we see the pushback from people like Briahna Joy Gray and Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald recently posted a video, it was only like 15 seconds long, of Cenk Uygur praising him for his great work as an investigative reporter.
Well, is he expecting them to go on Tucker's show and then just scream at him and make an ass of themselves? But you go onto a show that has an audience that doesn't agree with you, and you act like a civilized human being, and then they're like, "Oh, I kind of like this person," and then they check out your stuff.
Right.
Then you can get new audience members that way, and then force them to think outside of their little box. I think it's a brilliant idea to be polite on a show, the host of which you don't agree with.
And look, let's be very clear here. Whether you like Tucker Carlson or not, he has one of the most popular shows in cable media. His show is number one.
Quite an audience.
A large audience. And look, if you could even change, let's say, half that audience's perspectives, because remember, Bernie Sanders did a town hall on Fox News during the 2020 primary. It was the most watched primary or debate town hall that was done during that election cycle. And so many people were saying Bernie Sanders is now a right-winger. Duh. So let's play this video because Briahna Joy Gray makes a response.
Crystal is on to something. The Republican Party is performative populism covering for unabashed oligarchy. What both he and AOC fail to say, though, is that it's not just Republicans. It is crucial that people who understand that establishment politics are broken not pull punches when it comes to holding one side or the other accountable. It might be Lindsey Graham trying to cut Social Security and Medicare this week, but as David Sirota pointed out in The Lever, a dozen years ago, Barack Obama and Vice President Biden held a ceremony at the White House to announce a commission to try to slash Social Security and Medicare, but for a sustained campaign led by Bernie Sanders, which included a threat to primary Barack Obama, Democrats might have succeeded. Too often, efforts to make life harder for working people are bipartisan efforts, and partisan sniping allows establishment politicians to pass off blame like a hot potato, while no one is ever held accountable. Is Biden doing enough to address inflation? No. But are Republicans offering a viable solution? Also no. Moreover, those of us in the media who are willing to point this out are often attacked by establishment punditry, accused of being in the tank for the other side, even as our criticisms are bipartisan. Wanting to hold Biden accountable to his campaign promises might get you called the Candace Owens of the left, at least if you're black. Explaining why Tucker Carlson is appealing to so many viewers recently caused the co-founder of a popular left media site to accuse me of not being a leftist.
She didn't say his name.
No, she didn't.
No, because see, the thing is, there was a time, very short time, very small window where Cenk Uygur, TYT, people would have said his name. It was just a co-founder of a popular left-wing show on YouTube. And I think that's how TYT has now evolved itself into. It's now just a left-wing show on YouTube. Nothing too grandiose. But Cenk, how's that Katzenberg cast doing? Whatever happened to that investigative, those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, those investigative reporters? What happened to that $2 million? What happened? I wonder. Let's play the rest of that.
Just at all yesterday.
The mainstream media is disgusting in how they shut out progressives. In terms of the right wing, no. Briahna Joy Gray, unfortunately, is one of the people that are in the fake left. And so this has become a whole niche part of the industry. So Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, Briahna Joy Gray, and a couple of others in there.
Oh, well.
Sorry, go on. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
I wasn't expecting that boss move at the end there. I love it. I just thought it was very funny that he's like inventing a new term on the spot, on air, in the fake left, because he couldn't even get the thought out. He had to go back and qualify it really quick.
Yeah,
and
the
then
fake left.
okay, you just made that up.
Yes, he pulled it right out of his rear end, and I'm being a gentleman
then.
about that. So there you go. But it's again, look, Briahna Joy Gray was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, not once but twice, Janky. Okay, so before anyone starts to, because I will not sit here on this show and dictate who is this and who is that. Look, show me what you're going to do. I want to see action, not statements, deeds, not words. Make something happen. Show me what you're going to do. Show me how you're going to fight. I don't care what party. Look, because on this show, if a Republican politician does something good, like talking about free speech or Medicare for all, it's a rarity we'll ever see that, but let's say we do see that. Okay, I'll acknowledge the same thing with our Democratic lawmakers. They do something good, fine. It's once in a rare blue moon. I'll call it out. But I'll still demand one thing. I want to see change. I want to get money out of politics. And we should abolish all political parties. And at this point, I've been very clear with what I want, and I'm going to make my other statement too. I want to see the rise of more citizen journalists. I want to see more people like yourselves stepping up, no matter what part of the country you're in, to actually bring up more independent media, because that's what we need to see in this world. And we need to see people calling out both parties, because both parties are filled with frauds. I want to pull up this tweet from Jimmy Dore, who again has been smeared by Cenk Uygur so many times. When anti-Assange union busting buster who is in bed with billionaire Clinton donors calls you fake progressive, that's a win. Cenk Uygur lost all his progressive cred when he sided with politicians over healthcare activists during the force the vote. He thinks this will help. It won't. And he's right. Jimmy Dore is correct. That's why, a lot of these quote-unquote leftists are so upset about him possibly maybe making a run for president with the People's Party. I mean, we'll see. Jimmy Dore has yet to make that announcement. We covered it on the show on Monday. As far as I'm concerned, hey, go for it, Jimmy. But if not, look at how people are so upset that Jimmy is thinking about running in the 2024 election as an independent.
I mean, wouldn't be the most ridiculous candidate out there running in the 2024 election.
Yeah, true. And if we have senile Biden and Trump running, it's like two old men arguing over a bowl of soup. So there we go. Now, I want to play this video analysis from Sabrina. She, again, fantastic work. If you're not subscribed to her YouTube channel or Revolutionary Blackout Network, please do so. In fact, double check and triple check that you're still subscribed. Also, make sure you're still subscribed to Hard Lens Media, of course. Let's go ahead and play this video of the wonderful, outstanding Sabrina, actually talking about this statement where Cenk Uygur is defining who is leftist and who is not. Let's play it.
Uygur is calling other people fake leftists. Union busting Cenk Uygur. I don't feel like he's genuine. I don't feel like he's sincere. I don't agree with Tucker Carlson on 99.8% of things. I thought the whole idea of being on the left was to increase the left. I thought the whole idea was to get this message across to as many people as possible, whether there's a campaign attached to it or not. You're not going to do that if you only talk to people on the left. I think part of the problem that we have on the left is that we have allowed the TYT network, and I say network, not just that show, but everybody up under that TYT network. We allowed them to define what it means to be a leftist. We allowed them to define what it means to be progressive. We did. They were one of the first big independent media networks. You got to remember, Cenk was a co-founder of Justice Democrats. That's the model that they go by. And when you start talking outside of that model, they're going to smear you. And once you start telling people, maybe we shouldn't look at these issues as left versus right. Maybe we need to look at the class issue, which is something I say a lot. Once you take the focus away from that Justice Democrat strategy, then they come after you because you are now a threat. So let's talk about being progressive. So if you go on praising about Chris Smalls and what he did with the Amazon workers, but you yourself are a union buster, I would say that you're a fake leftist.
Hey, hard to argue.
Fair point. She's right. Like,
so again, here I gotta keep it real. Look, I used to watch TYT, and let's be very clear here about this too. TYT was one of the first major networks to really be something different than what we see from the mainstream media. But after the 2016 election, especially when TYT got that Katzenberg cash, there was a big shift. And you know what? I want to quote myself and even Daniel when we brought this up, when we talked about the documentary, film Mad as Hell, which was about TYT. This is something that maybe they were always going to do. This isn't a surprising reveal or something out of a soap opera. We're like, oh, shocker. TYT was going to go down this path, whether we all knew it or not. But the thing is, their message, their reporting, the way they cover stories, we just can't carry water for the Democratic Party. And it's correct to really be critical of the Democratic Party because they always help out the GOP. They're friends with each other. The Republican politicians, the Democratic politicians are friends, and their owners, their donors, control them, same thing the way they control the media. You gotta call them out. We can't play nice. I'm tired of seeing tweets from these, especially from progressive lawmakers, where they say, hey, what does Medicare for all mean for you? What does UBI mean for you? What does student debt forgiveness mean for you? It means the world to a lot of people. But you're not doing anything about it. And pushing Biden to the left ain't gonna work. And this whole idea when you hear from Fox News that Biden's is communist. What? Fox News, look. Sometimes you're getting close to the touchdown, and then like the big brain idiots that you are, you drop trow and take a dump and say you hit a home run. So there we go. That's my analogy on Fox News.
I mean,
keep it together. Like don't laugh. Don't laugh. Everyone, don't you dare laugh. Serious. I'm sorry. All right. Anyways, so how do we end this segment? Well, with an outstanding collage video from the wonderful Joe. Now, if you haven't been following him on Twitter, you can find his link in the description box below and in the show notes. But again, Jimmy Dore is calling out the hypocrisy of TYT. And at the end of the day, where's Jimmy Dore wrong? Let's play this video.
The anti-war option if he ends up running for re-election, I guess.
And now someone will clip this like they did last time to make it look like somehow I'm telling people to vote for DeSantis. And which I expect people to do. What I don't expect is for grown-ups to fall for it.
He avoided Trump stories like it was the plague during the Trump administration.
First thing we got right here. First of all, we have a failure to communicate. This is your party. This is exactly who you guys have been since Nixon. This is the 30 years of the Southern strategy.
Because now your main job is to fillet Republicans all day long. I hope you're having fun.
The Southern strategy, which was invented by Richard Nixon, which was just scaring white people about black people to get them to vote for Republicans.
But over the years, his content started to shift. He never criticized Republicans.
I don't criticize Democrats because I favor Republicans. I criticize Democrats because they favor Republicans.
But the reason why Jimmy Dore is deceiving his audience is because he wants them to vote Republican.
We have a failure to communicate.
He wants them to support Donald Trump.
Nowhere in the Jimmy Dore show have I ever heard Jimmy say, vote Republican, vote for the GOP, because he's not for either of the two parties. I want to make it very clear on this. We are critical of the Democratic Party. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Whoever's watching this, whether you're a Republican voter, Democratic voter, Independent, vote however you feel like. But if you vote for the Democratic Party or if you vote for the Republican Party, know this, those politicians don't like you, they don't think about you, they don't respect you. You will never have a seat at their table. And if you're only doing it just for team politics, then you're a sucker. I'm sorry. If you're a Republican voter that votes Republican, Democratic voter that votes Democrat, you're a sucker because the politicians don't like you. Let's play the rest of the video.
If he runs in 2024.
And now you know why you have to stop voting for Republicans and Democrats.
That's lying to your audience on purpose for money like a whore.
All he did was focus on Democrats.
Like a whore.
Nothing has changed because of Trump.
But now he's going to help you out and just admit.
Like a whore.
Yeah, I think that maybe you should consider supporting Republicans.
It's time to start voting third party, no matter what the third party is. You got to stop giving your vote to these two corrupt, murderous parties.
But the idea that you can sort of just quantify that Donald Trump was less pro-war than Joe Biden is just absurd.
Who pulled us out of Afghanistan? I'm just interested about that question. Which president? Which president?
President Joe Biden, when pulling out of Afghanistan, while committing billions in funds to troops in Ukraine, Israel, and Somalia. So we're in forever war. It's never stopping. This is a death economy.
His whole railing against the duopoly and not voting out of fear, the lesser of two evils, was really just to get a way to get people to not vote for the best shot at getting left-wing proposals enacted.
What the fuck?
I just don't think, what's the worldview?
What the fuck? Are you fucking on drugs?
Blunders.
Earmuffs.
He's sitting there trying to help the Republican Party in every single way like a whore because he loves Trump so much and he thinks he's so anti-war. Like a whore.
You would think it would be 57 progressives voting against it. But that's what I mean about the flip. Now, instead of having 57 progressives vote against war, we have 57 right-wing conservatives vote against war.
I mean, if you think Jimmy Dore is a leftist at this point, you need to get your head checked too. He wants to sheepdog people into the Republican Party.
Like a whore.
How you still don't think he's a con man? You just want a fake hero. I get it. Everybody wants a hero. I wanted Bernie. Bernie was my hero in 2015, 16. I know what that's like. But you got to face the music when you see who they really are. Bernie has proved over and over again he won't actually cross the establishment. So does Donald Trump.
Right, so I think that's the final note for this segment. Look, it's not right to dictate who is left and who's right, who is correct on certain issues. Here's the thing. The two-party system has been screwing us over, and Briahna Joy Gray, Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, and so many others have been speaking truth to power. And if TYT can't wrap its head around it and that they've lost the message, well, then it's time to move on. Lauren?
We never should have had a two-party system in the first place. I think that things would go a lot smoother for our country if we were able to vote on issues instead of people, and then have some kind of way to, you vote on the issue and you don't know who you're voting for, you just know what you're voting for.
Yeah.
And then, at the end, whoever has those policies, that's who wins.
Agreed.
The two-party system was never, ever, ever going to work. Washington knew that.
That's true. That being said, folks, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And with that being said, Lauren, you got a story for people. What is going on?
Oh, so we all need our daily fix of caffeine.
Yes, we do.
Starbucks is a huge proponent of that, of course. A lot of us do go to Starbucks every day, sometimes more than once a day. But they are starting to experience some very interesting internal meltdowns right now.
All right, what's going on?
Well, first of all, the CEO stepped down, so Schultz came back. He was... he'd been the CEO for a while. He stepped down for a little bit to let somebody else do it. And now we've got, so now he's the interim CEO again. But in order to find someone to replace him, they are looking outside the company.
Oh, so nothing will fundamentally change. Great job.
Yes, so they're looking outside of the company for a new CEO. And that's just interesting for several reasons. Number one being how many millions of dollars they spend on internal leadership training. But that's not good enough. They have to look outside the company. And he's saying it's because, we are in a new era now and things need to change. They need to be shaken up in some way. And we can't do that from inside the company because we don't know how. So they're looking at several different things that they're going to have to be paying a lot of attention to. So part of the reason that he's going to have to step down anyway is unions. The way that lots of stores are now unionizing. It's a new number every day. When I looked at it on Wednesday, it was 122 stores have unionized, and then yesterday it was 200, voted to unionize. So it's happening quickly. So that's one of the things that the new CEO is going to have to look into. They're worried about people changing how their habits, how many are they going into the office? Are they not? Are they working in the store? Are they not doing that? So they're trying to figure out how to adapt to that as well. They're also looking to get into NFTs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, let me test fate. What's the worst that could happen? Really? What can happen? Hey, there you go. But NFTs, hey, that makes sense.
Yep. Starbucks wants to get into NFTs, which I find, not surprising, especially because, I don't.
Just trust. You'll get a unique image that'll be worth something. All right.
Will it be worth something?
Will
it be worth something? Will it be unique?
See, that's a yes and a no.
Will it not be hideous?
Maybe it'll be a monkey smoking some weed. I don't know. One of those things, or maybe maybe a monkey drinking a latte. There we go.
Right?
That's worth something. That's worth something.
No, it'll be like a mermaid or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be so stupid.
So Schultz is looking for outside help, essentially, in order to start steering Starbucks in a new futuristic direction. So one of the things that he is fighting against is the growing pressure to unionize. So there's 9,000 stores, and of those 9,000, now about 200 of them have officially voted to unionize. More are voting to unionize every single day. They just want, and Starbucks, in order to try and mitigate this, is we'll raise, minimum wage for employees to $15 an hour by August. They're trying to we'll give you a little bit, don't unionize. So Schultz, and this is a quote from Schultz. He says, "I am not an anti-union person. I am a pro-Starbucks, pro-partner, pro-Starbucks culture person." And we didn't get to where we are by having a union, which, I'm sorry, that sounds kind of culty to me.
Yeah, it does. Plus, didn't Starbucks start off as a small business, then bought up by a corporation? There we go. Okay. So in other words, you have a CEO taking credit for something that he didn't even create.
He wasn't around. He also decided to throw the Disney CEO under the bus after the whole "don't say gay" thing. He's we need to be consistent and don't get political. So that's
the same idiot who ran a terrible campaign. No, screw that guy.
He definitely did that. So tossing his other CEOs under the bus, making weird statements about unionizing. Also, there was a store in Ithaca, one of three Starbucks stores in Ithaca that voted to unionize, and they're closing it now.
Oh. Coinky dink.
They're closing it. They're saying it was an issue with the facilities.
Oh. Yeah, something's wrong with the facilities. Wink, which means, we got to shut this thing down.
What the facility that they're having, the workers at this particular store went on strike for a couple days because they were protesting the overflowing grease trap, which is the facility that they're blaming for now closing the store. Now, I used to work next door to a Starbucks, and they had the grease trap guys come regularly to clean out the grease trap. Like, you can get that cleaned. It's part of owning the business, owning the store. You can get the grease traps cleaned. That's not a problem. Like, so to close your store and to cite that as the reason you're closing the store seems a little sus, especially because it is a smaller area. It is a college town. So there's only a few employees there over the summer, and then it balloons to about 30 during the school year, but it's only about 10 during the summer. So it's a small store. They're figuring, it seems to me like they'd figure there's going to be very limited pushback.
Oh. Well, it's not surprising that when a store or facility, let's say an Amazon warehouse facility, decides to unionize, then all of a sudden, oh no, we got to push back, we got to stop it, there's something wrong with this, oh, we got to challenge the vote, there's something weird going on here. It's what we see time and time again when unions actually win. Yeah.
So...
But don't tell Cenk Uygur.
I'm not ever likely to talk to him. The other issue, the other way that Starbucks is trying to push back against people unionizing, and this kind of is they are threatening other benefits. Not necessarily outright, but they're suggesting, they're pulling their people aside. They're having their managers pull their people aside and be like, well, and this is one that came up several times. That's why I'm going to mention this. I know that you are using our gender affirming and trans healthcare benefits. Those might go away if you unionize. Like, they're using that specifically to try and get people to be afraid to unionize, because then they'll lose their healthcare that gets them access to like hormone therapy and things like that. So it's like, so they're using that against their workers to try and make sure it's like, well, we give you health care and we give you all of this and this and this. You might lose some of those in negotiations.
Man, these corporations are insidious. They know how to scare people, intimidate people. Don't let the corporations intimidate you, because at the end of the day, you're just a number to them. Yeah. They don't like you. They don't respect you. They don't think about you. You're not valued to a corporation.
No. And in that same vein, it's not just Starbucks doing this. It's people across the board, companies across the board, just essentially begging their workers that can work in the office to come back to the office. Just begging them. Schultz, to continue in the Starbucks, Schultz says, I will beg on my knees, I will do push-ups. He says he's in the office 7 to 7 every day to try and, give people to give them a role model. Unlike Elon Musk, he has not offered any ultimatums, because Musk, if you don't know this, recently said that if you don't come back to the office for 40 hours a week, you can leave the company.
Well, this is what happens when you have corporations run America, and not to mention buy our politicians. So all this stuff that politicians care, they're going to somehow stand up to these CEOs. Right. That ain't going to happen. This is America. We're an oligarchy. Our politicians have prostituted themselves to the corporations, and no disrespect to prostitutes for comparing them to politicians.
So they want their workers to come back to the office. They're blaming productivity. They're saying, well, we don't know, but actually profits are up mostly across the board. So it's not like productivity is going down because people are working from home. There's some interesting psychology behind it, where the thought is that as human beings, we like to have some kind of semblance of control, and a CEO or a boss feels like they have more control if they can see the people that they're in charge of and have a lot more direct contact into their lives. That is how they feel like they have control. And when people are away from the office, they don't have that. And they'll try and say it's not as creative without the people all together and socializing and getting together and coming up with ideas as a group. But it's okay, but the other problem with that, the other side, is so many times we end up in just a fishbowl think tank. You don't get new ideas because you're just repeating the same things over and over. So it's not actually more creative, more creativity inducing to be in the office. It's just not. So I think it does make sense that the idea that they want to make sure that they have that control. And Schultz is like, oh, I'm just old fashioned. And a lot of CEOs are saying the same thing. I'm just old fashioned. So I want people in the office. We do have a video that sort of talks a little bit more about that.
Now, to discuss what that means ahead of tomorrow's job report is Recruiter.com CEO Evan Sohn. Evan, this doesn't kind of, at first blush, make sense to me. Recruiters aren't feeling so hot, but they're paying more, but higher pay isn't making prospective employees feel so hot. Like, why are we so picky and why are we so vexed?
Yeah, look, thanks, John, for having me back. And are we surprised that it's not easy? Nothing's been easy this entire time. You know, we started to use the expression from our talent effectiveness team called the Great Reevaluation, and we think companies are really, and employees are really reevaluating when they want to go back, how they want to go back, how should they get paid, et cetera. And it's making the recruiter's job even more difficult. And that's why we saw recruiter sentiment down out of 5. Last month, it was at 3.9. It's down to 3.6. And the candidate sentiment went down from 3.5 last month to 3.3. It's hard. And, you know, the companies are trying. We saw 37% of the recruiters reported an increase in salaries. Yet on the candidate side, that dropped as a priority. So compensation as a priority dropped from 30% to 25%. So let me explain what that means. That means that of the candidates' priorities, 75% of their priorities, their number one priority, was not about compensation.
Then what was it?
Work-life balance, remote work. New experiences went up from 14% to 20%.
You know what this sounds to me like, though, Evan? I mean, are we experiencing in the job market an inflation of expectations, similar to the monetary, right, inflation that we're experiencing? I mean, does it seem like the market's so tight that candidates are kind of like, well, I kind of don't want to work today, or I want to work in my slippers, or, you know, what do I want out of life as opposed to just money? Where if times were a little tougher and things were a little tighter, maybe those concerns wouldn't be the same?
I completely agree with you. You know, the question no one's asking is, where's all this money going? How are people actually living? And maybe this is a big impact of the gig economy as people are using side hustles as their primary hustle, as their primary income. It's getting harder. And what we saw in the numbers is that more companies were using recruiters to go after the $40,000 to $1,000 salary positions. And if you watched our numbers back in August, about 22% of the recruiters reported that those roles were in that salary range. That's now over 34%. So all of a sudden now you're having recruiters, which ordinarily didn't recruit in those levels, are now you're having companies say, hey, recruiters, get me those people. That's what's hard to do.
But now, there's also there's a problem recruiting recruiters, right?
Oh, my gosh. You know, earlier this week, Wall Street Journal came up with an article that said the hardest thing to recruit for is recruiters. You know, demand is surging for recruiters.
Can we pause this here for a second? Because here's something I want to bring up. Look, right now, Americans are tired of the regular game. They're tired of the dog and pony show. They're tired of the carrot or stick. You got to contribute to a system that doesn't give a damn about you. You know, not to mention, let's look at those job fairs that always came up as well, where you had those same recruiters. You know what they tell you at those job fairs? Well, you can't apply here. You got to apply online. Those job fairs are the biggest scam ever in American history. Yeah. Just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, so there we go. All right, your final note to the story.
The final notes of the story are people are trying, like the CEOs are attempting to continue to exert an insane amount of control over the people that they work for, and they're continuing to exploit those workers. And when workers try to avoid that, or they try to change that, or trying to change their situation, they are being manipulated, they're being gaslit, they are being threatened. And it's all being done just right out in the open and with a smile on the faces of the CEOs involved. And it is disgusting.
And of course, corporate media and the two-party system will defend those rat bastard CEOs as average Americans lose their homes, their small businesses, their livelihoods, and so much more. Now more than ever, look, I'm all for union workers, but we also need to start looking into worker co-ops and breaking away from this two-party system. Lauren, fantastic work reporting the story. Keep on doing great stuff. There you go. There we go. All right, with that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, I noticed that there were some chats on Rockfin and on Rumble too, so let's go ahead and acknowledge that. Roger Meadows, tip $2. Steak Uger, you mean Cenk Uger. You said you were a capitalist too. You said you are progressive. Here's the thing. There's no such thing as progressive capitalist or a leftist CEO for the simple fact that your interests can be in direct contrast with what is good for the public interest and interest of your workers. This was proven when you union busted. There's no such thing as a carnivorous vegan. Also, Roger Meadows, tip $2. The reason why corporate can't compete with co-ops is because worker co-ops, the greatest superpower is corporations' greatest weakness, which is co-ops are not out to get rich, but instead have a paycheck above cost of living. That's it. Worker co-ops stop price gouging because they are not as subject to greed as corporations are in the presence of co-ops. They know going up too high will drive customers to co-ops. If you are looking to get rich with co-ops, you are in the wrong biz. Right on, buddy. Again, Roger Meadows, speaking truth to power. If you're not following Roger Meadows on Twitter, you got to do so. You got to do so. He's got his finger on the pulse with the activists as well as worker co-ops. Roger Meadows was the one who convinced Daniel and I about worker co-ops and their initiative and how good they are, as well as convincing me that, hey, let's break away from all political parties, independent through and through. And that's a good segue into our next segment. So, corporate media is talking about the current election that's going to be happening in 2022 and the potential presidential election cycle of 2024. What's going on? MAGA taking Bernie Sanders' ideas? What is going on? We got this video from Case Study QB. Be sure to follow Case Study QB on Twitter. He's being wrongly censored. Let's play it.
All started from John right there. This Texas special election that Democrats lost. How much of a warning sign should that be for the Democratic Party?
Everything he said is 100% correct, and I think it should be a big warning sign. The Republican Party has a strategy now. Well, frankly, there are four parties in the country. There's the progressives, there's the establishment Democrats, there's the Republican conservatives, and MAGA. MAGA has a strategy. It's not just Trump, it's Trumpism. And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class. That shocks liberals. They can't imagine that. But what they are doing is they are moving right on culture. That's true. CRT is bad, trans is bad, but they call it parents' rights. So they're marketing their rightward move on culture really well. But they're also moving left on economics. MAGA sounds like Bernie Sanders when they're talking about American terrorists, when they're talking about American jobs, when they're going after big tech companies. And so by moving left on culture, left on economics and right on culture, that's appealing to working class voters, including black and brown voters. Democrats don't see this coming. We overreact to the cultural moves, underreact to the economic appeal, and you're seeing it pay off for MAGA. And so this is a very important moment. John Avalon, that should be seen by everybody 1,000 times. If Democrats want working class black and working class Latino voters, we're gonna have to change our strategy and respond to the MAGA threat.
So what does that look like, changing the strategy?
Well, listen, we're in danger of becoming a party of the very high and the very low. If you pull out the working class, you've got people who are very well educated and very well off. Those people talk funny. Latinx, I've never met a Latinx. I've never met a BIPOC. I've never met, all this weird stuff that these highly educated people say is bizarre. Nobody talks that way at the barbershop, the nail salon, the grocery store, the community center. But that's how we talk now. So that's weird. And then the people who are very low down on the economic ladder need a bunch of stuff. You wind up over-promising, we're going to give you reparations to people at the bottom of the economic ladder, talking weird to appeal to people at the top of the economic ladder, and the working class walks away from you. That is the danger we're facing.
Can I just ask, because you've been on the show talking about this before, what kind of reaction do you get when you say this? What do you hear from national Democrats?
Well, I think that there is a penalty you pay if you don't go along with the normal narrative. The normal narrative has been all black and brown people hate racists, all Republicans are racist, so all black and brown voters are going to vote for Democrats. All of that doesn't make sense in the real world. All Republicans are not racist, and Republican appeals are not just racial. Right, some of them are economic, some of them are cultural.
A little bit of CNN, all right? Because it gets a little bit dreadful after a while, because you're hearing corporate media give their perspective. So let's actually look at that analysis, that video, because we won't bring up the second video, but you could check it out in the show notes as well. But here's the thing we have to address about voters. Not all people fit into the same block. And corporate media for a long time has been dictating who can go where, who can sit where, who is this, who is that, who's labeled. Now, with the previous elections we saw in 2016 and 2020, and going now into this 2022 midterm election cycle and going into 2024, Americans are tired of the two-party system screwing us over. And Americans are being evicted. Americans are going to debt. Americans are struggling. Americans are at risk of being homeless. Americans don't have Medicare for all. And how do you think we got somebody like Trump in the first place? Because the two-party system kept screwing over people more and more all the time. And with Bernie Sanders bowing out not once but twice, did you see Trump do that? Trump being an egomaniac, the monster, the abusive liar that he is? Now, I can't predict the future, what's going to happen with a lot of these MAGA supporters or people that are running a little bit of Trumpism. But Bernie Sanders' ideas are popular. And if you confront Democratic voters, Republican voters, independent voters, and you don't say who it's from, Medicare for All is popular. UBI is popular. Federal Guarantee Job Act is popular. Doing something about climate change, ending regime change wars, and so much more. These policies are popular amongst voters, but what do we get from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party? More of the same, that neoliberal soup. Now, the danger of a lot of these MAGA supporters or these people who are, again, associated with somewhat the Republican Party loosely is, yeah, they'll say these ideas, but just like the progressives trying to reform the Democratic Party, anyone in there trying to run the Republican Party with Trumpism, they're just saying words. Because, again, it's the Republican Party and the Democratic Party establishment will have the final say. And this is why we got to break away from the two-party system, why we have to vote independent. Lauren.
I mean, yeah, and it just seems, again, sneaky. It's sneaky of them because they know, like, they're not stupid. And if things are popular with the voters, then, yeah, absolutely. Eventually, the people who are trying to get those voters on their side, knowing that people are not going to necessarily be very well informed, and just using the things that sound nice, the good buzzwords. Like, it's very clever and harmful. And again, I do agree with you about getting rid of the two-party system, but
it's for me, observing this entire failure of the system, there was possibly a chance with Bernie Sanders if he didn't back down. There was a chance where maybe something could have been done. But right now, seeing how 2024 is going to play out, we're going to be seeing two old men, possibly Biden, being the senile madman that he is, and Trump, being the orange clown buffoon that he is. We're going to see two old men fighting over a bowl of soup, which is America at this point. This is how we're a dying empire, and corporate media has contributed to this. They led to the rise of the Democratic establishment and Republican establishment screwing us over. So, what is the solution? We have to look at worker co-ops. We have to start building movements away from the two-party system and stop voting Democrat or Republican. And anyone, like take for example, you have Donald Trump, who was part of the Republican Party, and he was saying all these big things. But it turns out that he was just as corrupt as any other Democratic or Republican politician. Bernie Sanders is never going to challenge the Democratic establishment. So this whole idea of one group or another group trying to reform or take over said political party, no matter what, at the end of the day, the gears of both those machines will continue to chug along because the establishment has a plan. They'll use those talking points, say things you want to hear, and have you vote for them. You want to break away from that? If you're a Republican voter, a Democratic voter, independent, you got to break away from voting Democrat or Republican. Any other final comments?
I think you summed it up very, very effectively.
Jimmy Dore 2024. But run as full-on independent, Jimmy. Full-on independent, burn the system down. There you go. All right. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, check out Chicago Corner tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Lauren, wrapping it up with the final story of the day. You got a story for people. What is going on?
All right. So, first things first, there is an ongoing problem. The housing crisis in all of America is it's a mess. Cities everywhere. It's terrible. So I brought this tweet that it starts to sum it up, and then I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the actual story itself. So we're going to pull up the tweet in just a moment. All right. So the Chicago Housing Authority tore down thousands of homes on the near west side and hasn't met its promises to rebuild. Now the land is set to become a Chicago fire practice facility. So
And he's proud to help tell the story to ProPublica.
There it is. Proud to help Mick-eyed 1971 tell the story for ProPublica and WWTW.
See, I wonder who's going to actually go to that facility to really enjoy it. It's not going to be the people. Like, you're kicking out so many people.
They already okay, what happened was 20 years ago, the ABLA was demolished the public housing. There was a demolished public housing complex. So there was a thing. What I wrote it down. There was over 3,600 families lived there. They were promised 2,441 new units and 455 refurbished units. 20 years later, they've rebuilt 667 units. They did refurbish the units, but again, that was 20 years ago. So now they need new to be refurbished again. People have not been able to move back in. And this was promised under Daley. Daley was the mayor who was like, yes, this is what we're going to do. We're going to hit all these plans, all these grand plans, and he was going to work with the Chicago Housing Authority and get all of this, tear down this area, rebuild it bigger and better, and make it more affordable. There would be some affordable housing. There'd be housing for more affluent people. There would be a new community that would get that would grow up from the ashes of the ABLA. But again, it's been more than 20 years at this point, and there's been no housing built. Less than a third of what's promised has been built. So they have built tennis courts, and they have built a charter school and a grocery store.
Okay, sounds good on paper.
Some of the things that they've built police station. They have built. So they've started to build, quote unquote, what they say was infrastructure.
But it's not infrastructure for you
it's
people.
It's not housing, which is what was promised. They promised that they were going to build housing, and that was what people are looking for. That is what they want. And now, 26 acres of this land that had originally been promised for affordable housing has been bought by Joe Amensuito, who owns the Chicago Fire. He's also the founder of the investment firm Morningstar, which in my mind has always just been an unfortunate name for a business, because I think of two things when I think of a Morningstar. One of them is the medieval weapon that uses, and the other one is the devil. So,
yes, Lucifer,
Lucifer, the
angel.
Morningstar. So I'm like, I wouldn't have named my business that, but that is me. It's my history / mythology nerd in me. I would not have named my my company that. But
maybe they have a loose affiliation with Santa. I mean, Satan.
Right. So he's a local billionaire. He's a very influential business leader in Chicago. He, interestingly enough, has donated to mayors in the past. Donated to Emmanuel. And recently, Lori Lightfoot started praising him in a speech for what he's done for our city.
Our wonderful, stable-minded mayor.
He did not donate to her, but election cycles are coming up. She is the one who is working with him currently to make sure that this deal goes through.
Okay.
Then he needs this deal to go through.
I want to remind everyone about the fact that Mayor Lightfoot got elected into office, and we talk a lot about this in Chicago Corner. A lot of groups and special interests helped support her first initial campaign. Since then, she has made enemies out of a lot of people, and now she's thrown her hat back in the ring to run again. If she gets reelected, it'll be a bad day for Chicago.
And I think it's interesting. So he hasn't pledged anything to her or anything. I don't want to say there's definitely a connection there, but I think it is interesting that he has donated to mayors in the past. I think it is interesting, especially, and Emmanuel, who she worked under, he's the one who, made her the police chair
Yep. Rahm Emanuel, our wonderful mayor.
So,
former.
And now we've got this billionaire who's donated to mayors in the past, who just recently bought this sports team, whose current facilities are out in the suburbs, but he wants it in the city. And hey, look what I've got. I've got all this land that was set aside for affordable housing that, well, we just haven't done anything with it. And like nothing's been done with it. It's been empty for so long, so we might as well do something with it. You're the reason, Chicago Housing Authority, that nothing has been done. Nothing's been done for 20 years with this stuff. And it's like they can't find the money for affordable housing, but they can find the money for 100 other things, movie productions that they let people, do. And like,
well, wait. See, Lauren, we have money for the cops.
Yes.
Right. So here's the things that Mayor Lightfoot has done. Use some of the federal relief money for COVID-19 to pay off the city's debts, which is kind of illegal. Kind of. I'm saying kind of. It is. Mayor Lightfoot has been throwing more city fundings towards the CPD, even though there's police corruption and abuse of power. Lightfoot has ignored political corruption and has allowed corrupt aldermen to still remain in office. Lightfoot has turned a blind eye towards heavy industrial facilities polluting neighborhoods on the south and west side neighborhoods. Again, constantly going to war against the Chicago Teachers Union and going after union members. The same Lightfoot who has been critical of or can't take criticism from anybody, anywhere. The same Lightfoot who has ignored, again, so many instances of police brutality and police shootings. Same Lightfoot that has, also done nothing about the increase of crime here in the city. Nothing has fundamentally changed. She is Rahm Emanuel 2.0. And again, for those of you who don't remember, Rahm Emanuel shut down half the mental health facilities here in the city of Chicago, shut down 54 Chicago public schools, turned a blind eye towards gentrification, which Lightfoot is also doing, and also did nothing about the lead in Chicago drinking water as well, which is also something that Lightfoot is not doing. So there we go.
All right, yeah. And so she has introduced like $1.3 billion initiative for the next year to make the affordable housing happen. But again, the initiative did pass. Like but at the same time, so did the thing earlier 20 years ago where they said that they were going to do this. And the interesting thing, this is what really grinded my gears. She sent an ordinance out, and Lightfoot's ordinance acknowledged the need for more housing. In the opening section, it said, whereas the city is determined that there exists within the city a serious shortage of decent, safe, sanitary rental housing available for persons of low and moderate income, and that the continuance of a shortage of affordable rental housing is harmful to health, prosperity, economic stability, and the general welfare of the city. And the next day, Lightfoot announced that the city and the CHA were engaged in talks to lease the ABLA property to the fire team. So,
yay! Nothing has changed.
The next, again, we say this all the time. It's so easy to say stuff, and then but actions speak so much louder than words. So we've got a couple of graphics as well that I've pulled up. So this is a graphic of the housing affordability, and just like in the areas where there's a lot of it and the areas where there's a little bit. So there's an affordability gap in Cook County, an undersupply of affordable units between 1,700 and 15,000. So the darker blue locations on that map, there's an undersupply between 10 and 15,000 affordable units. They just don't have it. You cannot get housing. You can't get anything that is affordable. You can't get anything. You can't get help to get in and we wonder why there's so many homeless people in our city. It's because
the rent is too damn high.
The rent is super high, and it's going up. It's still going up, and income has stayed the same. That's going to be inflation. Income has stayed the same since the 90s?
I think even before
70, 60? No, 80s, I think.
Yeah,
80s, I think. I've heard the 70s thrown out, but I don't have that stat on hand. But median income has stayed the same for decades, and yet everything else is going up, including rent. And landlords keep raising the rent. Just constantly, and as they do, I don't know, sometimes it's...
Oh, by the way, we did get somebody to say 1973. That's
70s, haha!
So you're right. High Five Mountain. There you go.
High Five Mountain, the 70s. Thank you very much. Yes. So right now, 74% of lower income households pay more than 50% of their income for rent. 74% of lower income households have to pay more than 50% of their income just to live in a house. That doesn't include utilities, y'all.
Oh, no. They're gonna, it's really gonna happen. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's what's gonna happen. The establishment will tell you straight to your face, you'll own nothing and just be happy. Be a serf. Be a serf. Be a little peasant. No, wait. Be a pheasant, not a peasant.
Pheasant?
Yeah, pheasant.
Pheasant? Mother pheasant club?
Yes. That's what they want us to be. You'll own nothing and be happy. And I want to quote Eleanor. It's free to die. It costs too much to live.
Yeah, and even after that, your family has to pay after you die. Someone has to pay after that.
So there's two ways out of it. Right? Either you donate your body to science, because then that way your family doesn't have to pay, or two, cremate yourself. So there you go.
I want to be a tree.
What do you mean you want to be buried and have a tree planted on top of you?
Mm-hmm. I want to be a tree. No chemicals in me. Just I want to be a tree. Restart the cycle of life a little bit. Provide a home to birds.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Why not? I'm going to donate my body to science. I want science to say how beautiful I am, even after death.
Gonna go to the body farm in Florida?
Yes, they'll be like, wow, this is a great cadaver. Who is he? Oh, that's Kit Cabela? This is royalty right here.
So, I don't know. As the housing crisis gets worse and we find out that there's actually plenty of places where they were supposed to build housing, where they promised they build housing, where they've gotten federal grants to build a lot of other types of things. And then turns out they found out the people who currently live in the area and like with those houses, like in the few houses they have managed to build, they find out about this Chicago fire deal through a flyer and a community meeting.
Yay!
It's like, who went to that? Who's ever gone to a community meeting?
Well, see, at least there was a flyer out.
There was a flyer.
See, because unlike with the Mad Asphalt plant, a different story altogether, but with the Mad Asphalt plant, it was built near McKinley Park. It's running without a permit. No one informed the residents in 2018. No one from the state of Illinois, Cook County, City of Chicago informed the residents that an asphalt plant was going to be built next to 2 schools, a public green space, homes, apartments. At least a
lower income area?
Yes.
Full of people of color, probably? Yeah? Shocking.
There we go.
I'm shocked.
Shocked and chagrined. All right. Well, Lauren, again, fantastic. Depressing reporting, especially here in the city of Chicago. And if you want to know more what's happening in Chicago, be sure to subscribe to Chicago Corner tonight. We're going live at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be joining Jerry Vassilatos, Edward Heller. We're going to be talking about the wonderful city right behind us and the nightmare that will possibly be the 2023 Chicago mayoral election. Nightmare. So there we go. Lauren, as always, outstanding co-host. We got something here on Rockfin. Let's acknowledge that here real quick. Roger Meadows, tip $2. Sam did a segment on George Howell, who started Starbucks, that Howard bought it from him. Now George is starting up again. So Ithaca Starbucks, Lauren, you just made an argument for the New York Healthcare Act when you said that they'll be threatening with losing their healthcare if they unionize. Well, if we passed the New York Healthcare Act a few weeks ago, then that would be off the table and outside of negotiation because New York State would have taken care of it. Also, Roger Meadows tipped $2 regarding threatening to shut down their store. Well, this is why I've been talking to New York state lawmakers about my brainchild, the Worker Cooperative Business Administration, that can do for co-ops what the SBA does for small businesses. A CBA would be perfect for workers who are under threat of having their store shut down because they are trying to unionize by taking a proactive approach and can go to the CBA and ask for help to hash out a plan that would allow them to move right in and replace that shutdown location with a cooperative to continue to serve the community. So, the moment that they leave, they can come right in within 6 months before those workers' unemployed insurance expires and replace the business that left. This technique can also be used when corporations threaten to leave when the state decides to place tax hikes on them. Just like with them ceding ground location by location, when workers decide to unionize, they replace them with worker cooperatives. In this case, they'd be ceding ground when it comes to the entire state, making room for more cooperative companies to take over. They'd be taking themselves off the playing field of competition and forfeiting it to us. Instead of seeing it as a loss of jobs leaving the community, it can be seen as an opportunity to create something new, a consumer cooperative or a worker cooperative in its place. This is also something that can get the ball rolling on establishment multi-stakeholder cooperatives, as well as so that we can form our own supply chains in New York State, all cooperatively owned. Rock and roll, Roger, man. I can't argue with that. See, again, worker co-ops. It's a better idea. Also, Roger Meadows tipped $2. Thank you so much. Everyone is saying that they can't until we have charging stations around the country, so to stop paying high gas prices. But if you don't allow worker cooperatives to take these charging stations over, then private equity, which will drive charging prices up, putting us back to where we are with gas. Take this as a warning sign. Can't argue with it. All right. With that being said, I want to thank my wonderful, outstanding co-host, Lauren Snyder, for being a great co-host as always. Keep on speaking truth to power. Huge shout out to our tech briefing to your face, remaining board. Shout out to our moderators keeping the peace. Chicago Corn live tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for Hard Lens Media. We are live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. I will be uploading a Rockfin exclusive video about what's happening to Julian Assange. Can't talk too much more about it because of YouTube's policies, but we will be sharing that. And again, I want to thank all of you so much for joining us. There will not be a Patreon show, but I will be uploading some photos and some videos on Patreon, as well as a thank you to all of you for the support that you've been doing for us, and a link to our Rockfin video that I will be uploading very soon. So with that being said, have a great weekend. Please take good care of yourselves. Don't be a jagoff.
You got
one time. Only one time. Don't be a jagoff and fight for a better future. Make democracy manifest. Bye-bye.